If you think that you need to be famous to build a multi-million-dollar brand today, you are already behind. Right now, everyday creators and small businesses are engineering virality. Not by guessing, but by using time-tested formats that work over and over again. Brands like Smack and Sunflower Seeds, Tahini's Restaurant, and Will It Blend didn't start with celebrity status, they started with small teams, smart content, and the right format. Smack and scaled to $20 million in revenue bootstrapped by 2 college kids. Tahini's pulled in millions of views with simple skits. Will It Blend became a viral classic, helping it sell blenders. They all use the same system that now powers billion-dollar brands like Feastables, Joyride, and Prime. Same principles, just different packaging. And here's the crazy part. Thanks to platforms like TikTok Shop and Instagram Reels, it's never been easier to turn formats into powerful selling machines. But before we talk about how to do this, we need to address some myths that are quietly sabotaging your progress. Let's start with the first one. It's very easy to get overwhelmed when trying to come up with a new idea. You sit down to create something original, only to talk yourself out of it because someone, somewhere, has already done it. Sound familiar? Here's the first lie. You need a new idea to go viral. You don't. This game isn't about invention, it's about precision. As Mark Twain once said, there is no such thing as an original idea. And he's right. The most successful brands and creators today aren't pulling ideas out of thin air, they're reimagining proven frameworks and executing them better. Think about it. The Lion King is Hamlet. Bridgerton is Gossip Girl with corsets. Game of Thrones is Julius Caesar with dragons, dynasties, and way more betrayal. All of these are doing something that I'll break down later, but the lesson here is that originality is overrated. Execution is what matters. Now, let's talk about the second trap. You finally land on an idea, but then you find a shortcut, a little trick, a trendy growth hack that promises overnight success. And that's where you run into the second lie. Hacks will get you there faster. Here is the truth. Hacks feel good in the short term, but systems win in the long term. Hacks are like sugar. They feel good in the moment, quick, satisfying, and addictive, but systems, they're the protein. They compound, they build trust, they scale. Now for the third and most damaging belief of them all. You scroll past Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, Emma Chamberlain, and you start to think maybe you need to be famous to win at this. Here is the third lie. You have to be famous to succeed. Sure, being a celebrity helps, but look closer. These creators didn't start out with fame. They earned it by building repeatable, emotionally driven content formats and running them like clockwork. Fame wasn't their launch pad, format was. Just look at Tanner Leatherstein, a leather craftsman who built an audience of 2.5 million followers by dissecting designer leather goods in a format called Is It Worth It? One repeatable concept, one core feeling run over and over again. No fame, no shortcuts, just structure that scale. Now you know the truth, you are ready to understand the engine within the machine that is formats, and it's something that humans have built empires on. In his book Sapiens, author Yuval Noah Harari said, if you examine any large-scale human cooperation, you will always find that it is based on some form of fiction. Now what he means here is that stories are the foundation behind the success of everything that you can think of. And he's right. Humans built civilizations on shared stories. Now we build brands on them. Back then, it was belief systems around campfires. Today, it's content formats that scale across billions of screens. The product comes later. The story comes first. There's a famous rule in screenwriting called show, don't tell, that pretty much sums up what I mean here. Will It Blend doesn't tell you why to buy their product. They release content that piques your intrigue and shows you that their blender can blend anything, even an iPhone. Ryan Trahan doesn't throw his sweet product Joyride in your face, he shows it in his videos as part of the story. You see him enjoying it, which activates mirror neurons in your brain, and so that you want to go and try them as well. This brings me on to why these stories work so well. When we hear a story, something remarkable happens. Our brains sync with the storytellers. It's called neural coupling, and Princeton studies have proven it. We don't just understand stories, we actually feel them. We mirror that emotion. That's why story-driven formats outperform. They literally link your brain to the viewers, and in the attention economy, that is everything. It explains why we might binge Mr. Beast videos, because this content creates a narrative that you can't look away from. Creators don't sell, they connect. The content builds the connection, the format drives the demand. Now here's where most people get it wrong. They think formats restrict creativity, that they'll put them in some type of box. But the reality is, the opposite is true. Formats are how we've always made sense of the world. Now let me prove it. We've all seen Jurassic Park, Titanic, The Notebook, and Halloween. 4 very different films, but what if I told you they were all following the same structure? In 2005, screenwriter Blake Snyder wrote a book called Save the Cat, which allows you to break down every single story into 15 specific beats. So how can they all be so different? Because like format, structure is the skeleton and the story is the soul. Even in branding, look at Progressive's Flow campaign. Same character, same tone, same setup. That format built an empire in insurance. If you want to build trust, you don't do it with a single post. You do so with consistent storytelling inside a repeatable format. Story creates connection. Format scales it. And consistency earns trust. But not every format fits every creator. So how do you find the right one for your brand? Because here's the truth. Virality isn't about copying trends. It's about choosing a format that aligns with your voice, your value, and your goals, then executing it with precision. As the founder of Hookpoint, I spent 20 years studying what makes content scale. Across all of that research, one thing is clear. The best formats consistently share 5 key traits. All of this is present in Honor Health's videos. They're a supplement company whose whiteboard lesson format has racked up tens of millions of views, over 4 million likes, and built an audience of 500,000 plus. But don't just take my word for it. Let's watch one together. This one got 9.7 million views.
The more stressed you are, the more your body needs magnesium. This is because magnesium supports a range of different stress responses in your nervous system, essential to help you stay calm and relaxed. When you're low in magnesium, your nervous system doesn't have the raw material it needs to function as effectively, which can heighten feelings of stress and anxiousness. The key takeaway here is we have to give our body the nutrients it needs to function properly. If we're not giving our body enough magnesium, then we're not as effective at dealing with stress, impacting so many different areas of our health. I'll include in the comments below some foods that are most rich in magnesium. And if you struggle to get enough magnesium through food alone, then some of our preferred high quality magnesium supplements.
All right, now that you've got the vibe, let's break down why it works. When they see that Honor Health's video has a whiteboard in it, they instantly expect to learn something. Next, it's repeatable, meaning the concept can be used over and over again. The great thing about the whiteboard video is that not only is there an instant visual cue as to what is coming, but there are also an infinite amount of ways that this can be used. Then it has to feel platform native, meaning it needs to feel like it's been built for TikTok, Reels, or Shorts and has not been repurposed. As you can see, there's no giveaway watermarks to suggest the video has come from anywhere else. After that, you add in the core ingredient, because if you don't do this with your format, you are dead in the water. It has to be emotionally resonant. The hook of the video is the more stressed you are, the more your body needs magnesium. It works because it instantly sparks the feeling of curiosity to find out what the impact actually is. This can also be done with other emotions, including humor, sadness, fear, or awe. The final trait is that it's easy enough to evolve, meaning it's flexible enough to grow with your content over time. And as we've previously mentioned, there are a lot of possibilities with a whiteboard video. He could start with just words and maybe later use pictures or printouts of photos. There are a lot of different ways that this concept can evolve. But if there's one thing that Honor Health has done, which a lot of people miss, is that they have sold the feeling of their brand, giving out useful information and not just banged on about the function of their product. That's what format fit looks like when executed properly. The delivery matches the brand's identity and the audience's expectation. Now, once that's dialed in, the only thing left is consistency. Other examples include Feastables, which run challenge-based formats that are rooted in generosity and spectacle. Smackin' is another great example of what happens when the right product meets the right format. It was started by 2 college kids with no fame, no funding, just a smart product and a smart format. They began filming baseball players taste testing their sunflower seeds. That repeatable format didn't just get views, it helped drive $20 million in revenue in 2024, all from a system that scaled attention through consistency of their format. But none of these brands invented their formats from scratch. They found formats that already performed, tested how they felt with their voice, and then refined it until it hit consistency. But there's a secret to making these formats really work for you, and it's something that we call remixing. And it's all about making this format your own. You see, the best creators don't invent out of thin air. Take Keegan Evans. He's cultivated 3.4 million subscribers on YouTube by focusing on the videography niche. This video, where he makes a commercial with a random product and a random movie genre, has racked up 259,000 views. Storytelling plus filmmaking tips, all packaged in a cinematic visual style. Now look at Dean Shermay and his 102,000 followers on TikTok and 336,000 on Instagram. His most viewed videos get there through the same structure, but with a different vertical. We helped Dean adjust the genre mashup format and apply it to food. We worked with him early on to refine the structure, and now his content blends cinematic visuals with approachable cooking in a way that stands out immediately, as proven by this 110,000 views that this video got. It all works because instead of just posting recipes, he crafts a challenge for himself so viewers stick around to see if he can actually pull off the unusual mashup. The content feels premium because he remixed the format. Same vehicle, new paint job. The thing is, anybody can copy a format, but nobody can copy your story. So before you make any content, you need to understand, what's the mission you want to inspire others to believe in? What's the message that you want people to remember? And what feeling do you want them to associate with? After you figure out the answer to these questions, you now have the foundation for your story moat. At my company Hookpoint, we have a formula for everything, and the story moat is no different. Your story moat is made up of 3 elements: your beliefs, your journey, and your point of view. Now these 3 things are what separates you from everyone else. Now let me show you this in action by taking 2 creators using the same format in totally different ways. The School of Hard Knocks and Body by Mark both use the man on the street format, where they approach strangers in the street and ask them questions. The School of Hard Knocks teaches wealth building through daily interviews with self-made millionaires, while Body by Mark explores how the world's fittest have achieved their physical transformations. Both of them are doing the same thing, but this tiny tweak of altering the thing that they ask allows them to reach their own unique audiences. But the reason it works is the same, because the format allows them to show authentic interactions while maintaining a consistent structure through compelling storytelling to meet a message and mission their audience aligns with. So it all boils down to this: pick a format that's already working, study why it connects, then inject your own values, voice, and viewpoint. Repeat with consistency until people recognize you before they even hear you speak. That is how trust is built. That's how brands are born. And that's how content scales. But how can you take this and evolve to the next level in order to create even more content that will help you scale and grow? Well, it all starts with an identity shift. You're not just a creator anymore, you are a format architect. This is the mindset that separates amateurs from brand builders, because their biggest mistake is to create content without a blueprint or a system. That's why they stay stuck chasing trends instead of building traction. Now, if you want to scale, you need to think like a media company, not just a content creator. Let's break down our formula to do this. First, you study what's already working. You remix structure. You absorb rhythm. You don't copy story, you analyze and adapt. Then you systematize. You figure out how to make it yours, build consistency, and make it repeatable and recognizable. Then, only then, do you scale. With consistency comes trust, and with trust comes brand, which then earns you leverage. But none of this works without one key shift. You need to build formats that create rituals and rituals that build trust. Think about your favorite shows and your favorite creators. There's a rhythm to how they show up. That rhythm creates reliability. That's where audience loyalty lives. So how do you build that kind of format from scratch? First, you want to study 3 creators that you admire, people who are getting consistent views in your niche or adjacent spaces. Then you want to break down their most repeated format. Figure out what that structure is and take notes. How does it open? How does it pay off? What's the problem? Now, once you understand it, you can remix it in your own voice by injecting the formula I gave you earlier. Now, finally, you have to test, refine, and repeat. Don't just try it once. Test different intros, experiment with new links, refine what lands, and then cut what doesn't. That's not a lack of creativity. That is creativity. Because remember, nothing is original. When you operate like a format architect, you're not guessing. You're building a system that outlives the trend cycle, a structure that supports creativity instead of stifling it. A brand grows because it's repeatable, not because you got lucky. Because when the format is clear, the story shines through. And when the story connects, the audience grows on autopilot. Now, all you need is the perfect viral content model to remove luck from the equation and boost your chances of success, which I lay out in this video here. So if you're looking to dive in deeper, check that one out next.